I think there's something else, and that peace begins with ending the war inside. And how do I end that war? I mean, we're dual people, right? We every time we go into the mind is two. It creates this and that. So my job is to be outside the mind, reconciling the duality inside me. And that's really what I think the mystical teachings of Yeshua, Mary Magdalene, Tibetan Buddhism, Hinduism, the goddess teachings are like these teachings around integrating those truths and coming to wholeness, coming to peace.
That was Kenlyn, Kolleen, and this is episode 67.
Welcome to the Brave Woman Podcast. I'm your host, Tanya Lynn, founder of Sistership Circle and author of Open Your Heart and The Art of Leading Circle. I'm the mother of 2 girls, an 8 on the Enneagram, aka the Challenger, happily married to my business partner, Brent, love connecting with nature, and have put in well over 10,000 hours circling with other women. On this podcast, we will explore how to embody the brave woman so that you can take action on your dreams and desires, unapologetically speak your truth, and live life on your own terms. Grab a seat and a cup of tea, and let's get started.
Welcome back to the Brave Woman Podcast. Sisters, we're going to get real today. I've got one of my dear, dear sisters with us, Kenlyn, Kolleen, and we said, let's roll up our sleeves and just do what we always do, which is just get real, pierce the veil. So here we are talking about all the things, business, nodes, archetypes, all the things that we love to talk about. So welcome. Thanks for being here.
Welcome. It's so funny. You're like, today we're going to get real, as if every other podcast, you're not real. That's just who you be.
And you too.
Me too. That's why we're friends.
Yeah. And what we've been jamming about lately that I'm really excited for us to talk about is business and money. These have been the hot topics, and this month in particular for Brave Women Podcast, we're looking at money from all these different lenses. That's been really fun. And that's what we're always jamming out about, right? Is business and going deep with our work. And yeah, so I'm excited for us to go in there.
We're both so mission driven, and I think that's why we spend our time together, because business to me is fun, and I find in you it's fun too. And so when we're hiking a mountain, we like to talk about different things in business. But I also want a presence that both of us are in the space of transformation, and that's what the business is about. So it has this, it's a bigger mission for both of us. And I know that for the women listening, it's the same.
Yeah. Well said. So we're in Scorpio season. You said that's where we get real. And one of the things that you wanted to talk about, and that you're always bringing in, is astrology, these nodes. I thought that'd be a good place. Is just like where we're at, and create that context for our conversation today.
Yeah, I am known as kind of a Swiss Army knife when it comes to different distinctions and prisms. I like to call them prisms. It's not like it's true. So I like to play with things as it gives me a perspective that otherwise I wouldn't see by creating a structure and a system. So I want to allow our audiences into that paradigm as well, because I don't want to get into right or wrong, or this is the way it is, or that's the way it is. I like to use things for play and for seeing. And if they give you power, great. And if they don't give you power, then let it go. Because certainly we're in a time right now where you got to get the things that give you power so that you can really stay on point in the middle of everything that's going on. And yeah, we're in Scorpio season, so let's start there. The darkness.
Mm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
dredging up. Do you have Scorpio in your chart? Do you know?
I don't think so. I've got a lot of Virgo,
Ah, I
which
believe
is
that.
interesting.
Well, your husband is a Virgo, so you do
And
have
my
a lot of
mother.
Virgo. And your mother, okay. You have a
Uh-huh.
lot of Virgo.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we all have a house that's ruled by Scorpio in whole house astrology, even if there aren't any planets there. Um, so Scorpio really is the beginning of the medicine wheel as we went into Samhain, and we're filming this right after the Day of the Dead and our ancestors, the time when the veil is thin. So thinking about starting the year with death, and that makes a lot of sense right now
Mm.
when we're surrounded by news of death.
Whew, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So Scorpio kind of says we better bring that in. We can't hide the context in which we humans are finding ourselves right now. And
Mm.
part of me wants to cry,
Yeah.
and maybe I will, because it's intense. And it's not just intense on the world scene, it's intense in our interiors, it's intense in my interior as my nervous system seeks to navigate all the change. It's like society is splitting apart at the seams, and there is a real death process that we're experiencing. And I don't know that humans can actually handle, like if we were up there looking at the whole thing, and we would be able to handle that. But as humans, there's so much that I think we can't handle, so we block out.
Mm.
And yet I believe a part of us knows. And that's why we have so much stress in the space and existential angst in the space. And we really, we're seeking, and I want to presence this, just we're seeking connection and community with each other, and a deeper meaning in our lives, with spirit, because those are the anchors during these kinds of times. I'm just going to pause and let you reflect on that.
Yeah. It's so interesting how I can see the microcosm within me of like death and anguish and just a real, like if I can tap into it, sometimes I just like can tap into this kind of depressed,
Hmm.
heavy, it just feels like death inside sometimes, and how that's happening in my own life, and a lot of lack of clarity of how do I resolve some of these things. And then it's like the macro of what's going on with Israel. And I mean, it just feels like it's everywhere. And then that's so interesting that, yeah, that's where we're at in terms of the wheel, and
Right.
being in Scorpio and being, yeah, at the beginning of the year, and just where we're at, like where humanity is sitting right now on the cusp of something. And that is the beginning. If we think of the cosmic womb, if we think of the feminine, everything starts in the dark. It starts from death, and then we are reborn. And it's so challenging though for us to like be in that,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's so uncomfortable.
Oh, it's so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we have an ego self, and it is so attached, even when a real big strong part of us wants to evolve and wants to experience our own expansion. Mm. I'm just present to the contraction that has to happen with that.
Yeah. And it's like, okay, the way through for me right now, and this has been a big theme for you lately as well, is upgrading my communication.
Yeah.
Super clear communication, because when everything's just kind of messy and it feels like it's like going through molasses, how can I get more clear with my communication? I'm noticing that in some of my relationships, of like, where am I not having clear requests?
Yeah.
Where am I being fuzzy? And where I could create more confusion through my communication. And I know communication is a real hot topic for you as well. And you want to speak into that.
Oh my gosh, there's so many places to go, but what really came to my mind first was, yeah, as a feminine leader, and a lot of work that I do and have done has been with new coaches and starting them off. And when I think about the first hire I made for getting an assistant, talk about the reflection of my communication. Right?
Yeah.
All your stuff comes out like, oh, I
Yeah.
don't like to tell people what to do, so I'm going to suggest it, except that if I suggest it, it doesn't get done and I'm paying for them to do things. So really working with people has gotten me my boundaries and my clarity really on point. And that's probably because I'm not married. If I were married, I would probably have that.
Yeah.
I mean, everything serves as a mirror to our level of communication, our clients, the containers that we hold. And one of the things we're doing inside of my leadership program is working on authentic relating. It's a style of communication which has at its core curiosity. And so that gets to replace, that's not how I deal with my assistant in assigning a task. But if something went wrong, that's how I deal, or if and in fact, I just hired someone new and we went through a project and I said, okay, so we called it in law school doing a post-mortem, which is kind of morbid, but that's what we called it. So and she's in law school. So we did a postmortem on how did we both do in that process? Like, was I clear? What did she get from that? What did she understand? And it's so interesting because things I think are clear are not actually clear to another human being. And so the authentic relating process that we're teaching inside of Rise Leadership is really about getting into our curiosity and asking questions from a place of authentic curiosity. And then like worlds open up.
Yeah. Curiosity is so key because we're so like in judgment, fixed way of thinking, listening, and then we can just shift all of that by shifting into curiosity. I love that.
Yeah. And I mean, we can start with ourselves. We can start with getting curious because I know I judge myself a lot and I'm hard on myself. And so therefore I'm hard on other people. And so it starts at home, like everything, like the whole thing we're talking about, the world and the breaking apart at the seams and our judgments about it. If I start at home and I'm curious with myself, who said that? Who just said that inside myself? Like if I hear myself judging myself, I can ask, who is that? Tell me more. What's going on? And I find that it actually is a little bit different than my judgments make it out to be.
Mm-hmm. Modern women are seeking a more effortless and gentle approach to life.
The era of perpetual busyness and relentless toil, which disconnects you from yourself and your life's purpose, is ending. This shift is attributed to the rise of feminine energy as women recognize that attuning to their own feminine essence is nurturing, gentle, and bountiful. Life transforms into a seamless current rather than a relentless high-speed train. This revelation emerged as spiritual guide and coach Tyra aligned with her feminine nature. The outcome was heightened happiness, innate softness, and intuition, leading to profound healing and personal growth. Over more than 2 decades of conducting readings, Tyra has learned that women thrive when attuned to their present life phase, honoring their intuition and practicing self-care. She refused to this fusion as ancient wisdom meets the goddess-centered lifestyle, a path through which Tyra guides women to align with their life's purpose and flourish in empowerment and abundance. Tyra created the Goddess Mini Toolkit to help you do just that. Connect to your feminine nature, heal, and evolve. The Goddess Mini Toolkit is your transformative companion designed to facilitate the connection with your feminine essence, nurturing your evolution and healing journey. Tap the power of the goddess within you, beloved sister. Sign up today to get your Goddess Mini Toolkit. And you can get that by clicking on the link in the show notes. Yeah, you said something to me, and this is coming up now, is this peace begins with me. So as we look at the macro of what's going on in the world and we get to be the change, and peace really starts with communication. Because if we think about, having peace talks instead of war, actually talking things through, being in a co-creative conversation together, and how do we come up with solutions together? How do we create the win-win together? Is all in that communication. And one of the things you said is that you're a peace warrior. And so what does that mean to you, and how does that show up?
Yeah, thanks for asking. I just had that realization the other day, and maybe some of the listeners have had that too, because it's so on the collective question of peace. And is peace the absence of war? Is peace the absence of conflict? What is peace? And I think that it has such a high ideal that we can blow it off really easily. Like unconditional love, I can't do that. Peace, I can't do that. But I think there's something else, and that peace begins with ending the war inside. And how do I end that war? I mean, we're dual people, right? Every time we go into the mind is two. It creates this and that. So my job is to be outside the mind, reconciling the duality inside me. And that's really what I think the mystical teachings of Yeshua, Mary Magdalene, Tibetan Buddhism, Hinduism, the goddess teachings are like these teachings around integrating those truths and coming to wholeness, coming to peace. And so I feel like my role in this collective as I look around is to support us to come to an inner peace so that we can start having outer peace. Because the truth, as I observe it in myself and in others, is that we really don't know how to talk to each other.
That's for sure. Yeah. And that's why we love Circle. Circle's the opportunity for us to learn how to actually start relating and talking to each other and learning a whole new way of relating in that way. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that Circle technology should be used at the dinner table. I told you this.
Right?
Everybody should take Circle and learn how to circle with sistership, because you can put this to work in many, many ways.
Yeah. Okay, let's change gears here and talk about business. And we all love archetypes. I love to play with archetypes, and they're so powerful. And you have these business archetypes. I'd love for you to share and us kind of jam on these. What are they? There's five
Yeah.
archetypes that you have for business.
Yeah,
So
and we
we
didn't
can,
get to the nodes either, so we might want to weave that in. Maybe we can hit
yes,
that at the end because I
yeah.
have some predictions for what kinds of coaching and um, teaching and guiding is going to be hot in the next 18 months.
Okay, so sisters, stay along till the end for the
Yeah,
nodes.
for the nodes, right? So yeah, I love archetypes, and some of you know that I started the Divine Feminine Summit, and it became an initiation of different divine feminine archetypes. And so I took that work into business as I was working with the divine feminine business mastery women and noticing certain shadows, because of course it's Scorpio time, and I have also in my chart the ability to see shadows, and which gives me the ability to see light, the ability to see the gold. So I developed these five based on like this polarity of the shadow covering over the gold. So let's dive into a couple of them. The one that I love that I'll start with is the committed leader. And this committed leader is really the gold of the committed leader is dedicated to excellence. I love having a committed leader on my team because committed leaders are committed. They're going to do the thing every time in the Divine Feminine Business Mastery. Now I call it the Business Mastery Accelerator program. But those women, they would always do their homework and they would do it really well. So it's the archetype of excellence, and underneath it, however, the shadow underneath it is, can anyone guess? What's the shadow? Perfectionism.
Mm-hmm.
So they're really hard on themselves and they're hard on others. There's a bit of a should kind of thing. Like, I should be doing this. They try to compare themselves to an ideal.
Mm-hmm.
And that's brutal because ideals are not meant to be compared to, not as humans. And so the anecdote, or antidote for this archetype is to really do forgiveness practices and to have some fun.
Yep, I would say I'm a committed leader, and fun is definitely the antidote for me because we just get so serious.
Yeah. Yeah.
I take life way too seriously sometimes, adding in the
Well,
fun.
you're
I love that.
Virgo. Your Virgo is all committed to that excellence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Let's move to the super aware empath. That was just a fun name. Yeah.
So many women listening are probably this one.
I think that was the number one, followed closely by the next one I'm going to talk about. But
Yeah.
this one, super aware empath, a lot of those women find themselves in my community, and they really have freaking epic gifts. I mean, you can imagine these gifts really germinate from a sense of love, just love. Like their cosmic mother, and they have those spidey senses. They can read people, and they even know what people need and want before they even ask. And so they're really good coaches because people come to them who are broken and they need to be restored. And these super aware empaths provide such an incredible container for them. Their ability to empathize makes people just feel seen. And as we can imagine, what's underneath that sometimes is a sense of people pleasing.
Mm-hmm.
And I always say, just in presencing this, I always say that like our wounding is the thing that delivers us into our gifts.
Yeah.
So if you grew up as a people pleaser because that was a freaking trauma strategy, it's not for naught. That's a gift that you get to turn into your superpower, and being mindful of the ways that it harms you. So you have to work an edge. With all of these polarities, we get to work an edge. And so one of the edges for this archetype is boundaries.
Mm.
And self first, I would say, and putting yourself first. It's really, really hard for these women to put themselves first.
And getting lost in someone else's energy, merging into other people, loss of self. Yeah. And that's where the boundaries and being able to kind of have that spiritual hygiene and not take on everyone else's stuff all the time.
Yeah. And just to spend enough time alone to where you start to know yourself. Because if it's hard to distinguish between what you want and what someone else wants, then your job is to spend some time alone to figure out, what do I really want?
Yeah.
Shall we move on to the third one?
Yeah.
This one also had really high marks, and I was surprised because I thought it might have like the lower number of people. But this one, you'll find out, it's hidden. And this is who I'm sussing out, by the way, for the Evolving Sisters Network. This was the archetype of the mystical teacher that I created my leadership program to support women with the body of work to make content for the Evolving Sisters Network. Because I knew that these women, as mystical teachers, they do not want to be out there. They don't want to be plastered all over social media. They don't want to be like doing selfies, talking to the camera about their lives. They're way more introverted. And they tell me, like, part of them is hiding.
Yeah.
They're incredible with knowledge because they never feel like it's enough. And so they dive deep into things. They know so much. And they have so much rigor. They will just follow it through to the end. So they're super qualified, but they don't think they're qualified. And the part that I love to share with them, that they know deep, deep down inside, but sometimes they don't recognize, is that they're actually a closet leader. And it's time for them to come out of the closet. And so what they really need is a safe space. And they need space, but they need a safe space. And that's why I felt like the Evolving Sisters Network could be a great partnership where we host their classes and their courses, and not all of them, not all of their body of work, but something that they've created so they don't have to do the marketing and the promo, and they can be one of our teachers.
Yeah, I think they're also probably really holding some witch wound, right? Where they're bringing through wisdom that's like ancestral, and it's just been part of their DNA, and they might have been burned in a past life for that, right? So they're kind of holding that. And so it is scary to come out, and there is that fear of using their voice and being burned for the mystical teachings. I mean, look at Mary Magdalene. Yeah. Right?
Totally. I mean, for thousands of years lived under a total lie. Like, her name has lived under this total lie.
Yeah. And it's just coming out now.
Just coming out now.
So fascinating. The timing, right? Yeah.
Well, it's part of that death process we presenced at the beginning, that death process of the patriarchy controlling everything. There is no more control that I think any of us are willing to let something outside us tell us who we are, what we can believe, what we can do.
Yeah.
So yeah, thanks for presencing the witch wound in that. That's huge.
Mm-hmm.
The two others, a lot of people relate to the abundant creatrix. And I had to put this in there because these women are so brilliant and so creative. And they are just an idea generator. And they're just doing so much. I mean, if you've asked women in our community, like, so what do you do? Like, there's like 10 things that, like, I wrote a book on that. And then I did this course, and they're all about different subject matters. And so I can relate a lot to the abundant creatrix. The shadow is, as we can see, is the bright, shiny object syndrome, the chasing after these ideas, and as a result, becoming overwhelmed and scattered.
Yeah.
And I think after the last 18 months with the nodal axes in Taurus and Scorpio, I think that so many of us have really started to understand how we're creating value and focusing instead of becoming more broad, actually focusing on becoming a master at that thing. And I'll say it's taken me a long time because I'm interested in so many things, and it took so much trial and error to really commit to a particular, I'll say niche because I use that word inside of our training. And focus and structure and systems are just like medicine for these people, even though it's counterintuitive. Right?
Yeah, they're resisting.
Right. But right behind that resistance is like and then you get seen, right? Because something actually gets birthed into the world long enough, and you keep at it long enough where it actually can get some traction. I think people are, and I've gone through this myself, where you birth something creative in the world and you expect everyone to just love it right when it comes out of the womb. Like, here it is. And people don't really notice. It takes years to develop that. And then when you stay with it, then you become an expert and you become known for it. And then you get the recognition and feedback that you so deeply desire.
Yeah, it sounds like also part of the antidote for the abundant creatrix is strengthening their committed leader.
Yes. Really good. I love that.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, those two go really well together. And I think we have a little bit of all of these in us, and we probably play out one or two. And then the final one, which was the archetype that I resonated with the most, was called the confident warrior. And this confident warrior, the gift is a large capacity, and there's a rigor to this one too, of just getting shit done. And people trust that energy because it's strong, it's committed, it's got a lot of the committed leader in it. But the thing that distinguishes it is that the shadow underneath it is a lone wolf.
Mm-hmm.
And doing things myself, like even having an assistant was a big deal for me because I felt like I could just do it, and I'll do it the way I want it done. So that'll save me time. But I remember reading the 4-Hour Work Week, and Tim Ferriss said, even if you can do it yourself, you shouldn't do it. And that's how you get to a 4-hour work week. You really focus your tasks. And so that's when I started to take that to heart and build team. And that's one of the the antidotes for this lone wolf is to start trusting people and building team. And I love that we ended here because that segues back to the communication. The way that you're going to trust people and build the team is when your capacities to communicate what you want and need and by when is fully developed. And it's a process. It may not be fully developed when you first hire someone, but you'll work it through.
Yeah. Really, if you want to grow your business and you want to get, let's just say, into six figures, you need to start letting go of doing it all by yourself and building team. And team isn't just like your support people, but it's also your collaboration partners as well, right? And that's really about stepping into the CEO, which is what you're teaching. And that word can be super scary for a lot of women who are healers and light workers and medicine women. But I'm really hearing like there's that committed leader and the warrior, the strength of that. But you have to open to then being able to receive support and build that team to get it beyond, just the beginner level.
Yeah. What I teach at the beginning is probably because I'm really dealing with a lot of people just taking on coaching, or they've been maybe doing one-on-one sessions and charging by the hour or charging for packages. And, like I have a friend who does that, who just till recently, I mean, she's been doing that for decades, just recently started to be able to describe her work. So the basics and the foundation of becoming that CEO of your business is really knowing who you serve and what's your big why? What's the reason that you are serving those people? And then the third thing would be, what's your business model? So what is the way that you're going to make money? And the fastest way to make money, and this is what I teach people, is to start with one-on-one in a premium soul client model, because that gets you out of the hourly and that gets you into revenue. And then you have some space to actually create a body of work, which is part of what we do inside my program. And then you're generating income to pay people to support you. And then to the collaboration point, people know what you do. They know who your avatar is. They know who you serve. They know what problem you solve. And so you can form collaborations easier that way. And so there's a basic foundation and it's just like building a house. You don't really start putting the walls up until you have the foundation. And when you have the foundation, then, you can build a two-story house. You can build a single-story house. There's so much you can do with it. But I find that because we're living in a world that there's so much opportunity and, there's a bright, shiny object for every single thing, memberships, ads, group programs, everything. It's like, do this, do this, do this, do this. And so when women come into my community, I try to simplify it. And if they need to get into revenue quickly, which most people do, it's like, okay, then this is your path. And then from there, like the world opens up.
Yeah. And the revenue is what opens things up.
Yeah.
And this is, I think, something you and I both share, is the importance of money. And it's interesting how I was just reading some of my reviews for one of my books, The Art of Leading Circle. And this one woman gave me a 1-star review because she said, I'm too focused on the money.
Yeah.
And, I had my reaction to that at first, but I'm like, we as women, so many women want to be able to make their own income because it provides more choice, it provides more freedom. And yeah, I mean, money is really important to you in this, like you get it as well, where it just opens doors.
Yeah. I mean, this is such an interesting conversation. I'm glad we're having it because spiritual women listening to us need to process this. When I first started teaching yoga, and that's really how I built my one-on-one client. That's how I tripled my income and went to six figures when I was not making hardly anything. I was trying to figure it out on my own, and I followed this system that I'm now teaching. And I was embarrassed that I
Yeah.
was actually making a lot of money compared to other yoga teachers, because clearly the yoga studio itself wasn't where I made all the money. It was the vehicle that brought people to me. And then they got to have a taste of who I am and what I offer. And all of that happened. And I always say that your way is in your field. It's already there, because my way isn't your way. And that's part of the thing that we try to suss out in the Business Mastery Accelerator. I have a few processes to get to, like, what's actually in your field where all that magic can happen. But for me, the magic happened in the yoga studio, and I had to work through, like, oh my gosh, do I tell people that I'm making money? And I started to teach about money because my clients would come to me, and then all of a sudden they started asking me to teach them how I got to where I was. They were asking me to teach them that. So now it was kind of like the cat's out of the bag, and I was claiming that I was making money. And I had to work through this. I think it's like a spiritual shame around money.
Yeah.
And I get that there's this, like we were talking about polarity and the duality that we're here to integrate. I get that focusing exclusively on money and having things is a lower worldview. And then there's this reality that we can't spiritualize poverty.
Exactly.
Right? So it's a both and.
Both and. Yeah.
And every person, I believe, who comes from the spiritual traditions, whatever, gets to wrestle with that, to how can I include money in my life and let it be good, let it nourish me, like that I have a right to be here. I have a right to have influence. I have a right to be compensated for the work that I do in the world. It's no different than a plumber coming to a house, except that it's even better. Although I like my plumbing, but it's like you have a right to be compensated.
Yeah. Okay, let's wrap up our conversation with the nodes. And you said, this is kind of where we're going with coaching. So we can tie this together of, okay, now what? Now where do we go if we're wanting to make more money as a coach? And yeah, share with us.
Yeah. Okay. So for those of you who don't know anything about astrology, just listen to the theme, because you don't have to, because it's already there. You're already feeling it. So the last year and a half, we went through the North Node in Taurus and the South Node in Scorpio. And it really dredged Scorpio, the dredger, these feelings about our value and our worth. So chances are somewhere in your life, you've really had to wrestle with your value and your worth. And that conversation came to an end. It's not all ending, but it collectively came to an end with this last eclipse. And so chances are you are present to the value question inside of you. And so the cosmos is moving on to a different conversation. So every 18 months, these nodal axes act as conversations. This is how I interpret it. There's different interpretations.
Yeah,
I
sure.
love Jan Spiller in Astrology for the Soul. Like, that book is insanely good. And Jan Spiller's passed, so thank you, Goddess, for
We'll put that in the show notes.
Yes. It's pretty amazing. So she looks at the axes as your north node being our collective dharma. And each one of us has in our personal chart a node, a north node and a south node. So we each have our personal dharma, and we have a collective dharma, and we have a collective karma, like where we came from, the past life stuff that we're bringing into this world to transmute. And usually in your personal life, you don't step into your north node until your Uranus opposition. So that's in your 40s. You kind of get your ass kicked, and then you're on point, and your a dharma opens up. I've seen that happen a lot earlier. It's up to you. I'm still working with my north node. So as a collective, the north node moved from Taurus into Aries, and the south node moved from Scorpio into Libra. And what that's bringing forward, and we can tell this Aries, bold leader energy is what we're being asked to step into. So it's like, now you know your value and your worth, and now you get to step into your leadership. And what's leaving behind is codependent patterns, people-pleasing patterns, the ways that we merged with others, because Aries is a singular I am, and Libra is we are. So interestingly, we're not going into a we are time. We're going into an I am time. And what I like to say is that this is a time where we get to speak our truth and get along with others.
Yes.
So there's where the communication comes back in, because if we think we're just going to be lone wolf actors out there just doing our own damn thing, we're going to get a lot of pushback, and our safety and security and our well-being and our meaning comes from community. So Aries in the North Node is saying, yeah, and I got to bring my full self. There's no way I can enter into a group dynamic or a relationship hiding my true self. And so if I make these predictions, it will be like coaches that support people in their leadership. So what you and I do is supporting women to rise in their empowerment and in their leadership. That's going to be huge. Sovereignty is huge. And this is why I love coaching. There's been conversations around, is coaching over? I'm like, no, because more than ever, it's becoming on the world's menu. Think about it as a world conversation, that we become self-actualized, that we be able to be an I am. We need help with that. We need all kinds of guides. And so until that, coaches are totally necessary. So people who deal with like how to support people out of people pleasing, codependency, those are going to be really hot areas of coaching. I also think some hot areas of coaching are going to be relationship coaches, because relationships are going to take a major hit. More people are going to get divorced with the South Node in Libra. So helping people really have critical conversations to get to their truth, the real truth, the I am truth of whether it's true for them to be together. Is the equation 1 + 1 greater than 2, or is it detracting from that? So they get to self-evaluate, and relationships will go through that, because we're kind of dying to these old modalities of institutionalized religion and nuclear family, and the ways that we've done life in the modern world will probably not be the ways that we're going to be doing life over the next 10 years. And we can say that that's sad or great, or we can say anything, but I think we get to just get on the side of the way the river is moving and work with it. And I think money and financial independence are also going to be a really huge part of this North Node in Aries.
Wow. So powerful. I love this. I love all the context that we get to create around that and like moving forward as coaches, healers, medicine women. So thank you for bringing your magic here to the Brave Woman podcast. So sisters listening, we'll have the show notes to connect in if you're interested in business mastery, if you're interested in really stepping up into your CEO. We've got links for you to join Kenlyn and go over into her world. And if you are that mystic teacher who has a body of work and you'd like to be part of the Evolving Sisters Network, this is an amazing platform that she's creating with incredible courses and looking for women like you. So reach out to Kenlyn, and we will see you on the next Brave Woman podcast.
You just listened to this show. I'd love for you to leave the Brave Woman podcast an honest review. Reviews help podcasts like this one grow, making it more possible for me to devote my time, energy, and money to its production. If you take a screenshot of your review and email it to support@sistershipcircle.com, we'll send you one of our archetype activations as a thank you gift. Thank you so much for your support. I really appreciate it.
Up next, do you experience burnout or adrenal fatigue? In the next episode, my guest and I are going to share a way to have more sustainable energy to live your life.